So, you're going to have a baby. Welcome to Mother Love Child. Today I am on my porch in a little nook I created for myself. We have crows joining us. They're squawking overhead. And we also have some neighbors cutting the grass, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me just fine. I'm going to speak loud enough and maybe take some breaks when that lawnmower gets too close to here. But anyway, today we are going to be talking about the one thing you can do every day to prepare for your labor and birth. Later in the video, I'll be sharing a couple experiences, one which happened during my very first labor and birth, and the other which happened at my most recent labor and birth. And so be sure to listen through to hear those because they're super special and super helpful. The one thing you can do every day to prepare for your labor and birth is to practice conscious awareness. So what is conscious awareness? Conscious awareness is the state of recognizing, being aware of what you know, feel, see, perceive. So why make it part of your everyday? Because it brings you closer to you. In order to practice conscious awareness, you need to turn inward. And labor and birth itself is inner work. So how do you practice conscious awareness? There are various ways you can practice conscious awareness, and today we're going to talk about 4 of them. Physical relaxation, imagery, whether that be guided or self-inspired, breath work, and self-soothing techniques. We want the act of practicing conscious awareness to become effortless. That way, when the time of labor and birth come, you're not trying to practice conscious awareness. It becomes interwoven in your regular daily life. So let's picture for a moment the wise old woman sitting in her chair with her handwork. Let's say I'm going to use knitting because that's something I have a little experience in. And when I picture the wise old woman with her knitting project in her hand and her knitting, she's not even looking at her hands. She's not even looking at the yarn or the needles. She can do it without looking at it. It has become so effortless. She can now knit her project and also be aware of the things happening in the space around her, and also be aware of herself and what she is feeling. My grandmother taught me how to knit. She taught me along with my sisters how to knit in the summers when she would come over and keep an eye on us while my mother worked. And I remember how much I had to focus on slipping the needle through the yarn and wrapping the yarn over, and when I slipped the needle out to make sure I grabbed the right loop of yarn and so forth. And then over time, the more I knit, the more I practiced, the more I took the time to experience it, the more effortless it became. And over time, I was able to knit my work without looking at the needles, without looking at my hand. And so essentially, if we were to compare that with conscious awareness, that's what we want to achieve. We want to achieve the ability to practice conscious awareness effortlessly without it taking that extra thought, that extra work process. Remember, because when we're in labor, we want our focus to be on our work in labor and birth, and not on learning something new. So let's dive in and start talking about some of these ways that you can practice conscious awareness. The first is physical physical relaxation. So sitting back and putting up our feet after a long day's work is for sure physical relaxation. But if we were to take it a step further and practice conscious awareness at the same time, we're going to do more than just lounge on the couch to a TV show or a book. We're going to take it a little bit further, and we're going to be super consciously aware of our body and allowing it to physically relax. So how do you do that, right? So what you do is you set some time aside. Now all of these different ways that you can practice conscious awareness, all of them can be practiced anywhere between 3 to 20 minutes, anytime during the day that works for you. Even just 3 minutes of practicing physical relaxation consciously is going to help you to be able to practice that effortlessly. So, just a short little example for physical relaxation would be to set a 3-minute timer. You can lie down on your back, on your side. You can relax in a chair. You can even relax in a couch. Whatever is speaking to you in that moment. And I would always, especially in the beginning, I'd encourage you to close your eyes. First, listen to your breathing. And then, imagine a muscle in your body. You can go from head to toe or from toe to head. You can even work from the middle and outward. What a beautiful place to begin with the womb and your belly and your baby. But feel those muscles. Feel them. Become aware of their state of tension. And then let go a little bit more. And then let go a little bit more. And move on to the next muscle in your body that you choose. That is one way to practice physical relaxation consciously. Okay? Conscious awareness practice through physical relaxation. All right. What's the next one? Right. Imagery. Whether it's a guided imagery that you find online or whether it's self-inspired, something that you come up with your own in your mind. And so how do you do that? If you find a guided relaxation online, then simply what you do is you get comfortable, quiet space, you push play, and you follow along. And you go with it. Now if you're creating your own, if it's self-inspired, these are some things that you want to think of. And we're going to go with, in relation to labor and birth, anything that's opening, like a flower. Gosh, what else open? I know there's more, right? There are more things that open other than just a flower. Obviously that's the only thing that comes to mind, or even just a circle opening, a spiral, getting wider and wider. Softening. Imagine things that are soft. Imagine an endless stream of energy flowing into you. So those are just a few examples of what you can think of. But while you're doing this self-inspired imagery, you want it to be a quiet space without any interruptions, so you can really go into that imagery, breathe into what you are seeing, go through your senses, what you see, what you feel, or what the image in your mind would feel like. If there are any smells or taste, let's see, taste. I always miss one. See, feel, smell, taste, hear. And anything that you might hear. Add in those 5 senses in any type of inspired imagery that you might do. The main thing to take away with imagery is that you have a quiet space, maybe not one with the lawnmower in the background, and that is uninterrupted. So you can really just be self-absorbed in that practice. All right, and breath work. I love breath work. It is like the thing that can help stabilize and kind of ground us in the moment when things are like kind of rockier or just adrift. And breath work can bring us back to our center. The best place to begin with breath work is to just take the time to notice your breath. You don't even have to change it. Just notice it. Get familiar with how you breathe, how your breath carries you through, how your body breathes and gives you oxygen, and how that oxygen comes to you and to your baby. So the best way to begin with breath work is to just notice your breath. I'll give you a couple examples. One is one of my favorites, and it's a breath in to the count of 4 and a breath out to the count of 4. Remember, and when we're practicing breath, we keep a regular beat as we count. So instead of 1, 2, 3, it's more like 1, 2, 3, 4. Even just counting slowly helps our breath to slow down. But anyway, so that's one of my favorites. In to the count of 4 and out to the count of 4. And take note of how you feel afterwards. And you will find that the more you practice any type of breath work, when you find yourself in a situation where it may be stressful, you will find that you naturally begin to breathe in that way that you practiced. And what a beautiful thing, because it's going to help give you calm. It's going to help you become centered and feel more at peace. And it allows us to work through our little everyday stressors that much more easily. Okay, let's see what other little breath practice do I want to share for an example this time. Okay, so here's another one. A reminder of how our breath works in our body. So when we breathe in, our diaphragm, I don't know if you can see, our diaphragm fills up. It kind of fills up and moves down somewhat. And that motion within our chest, if you will, causes our bellies to expand a little. So the movement within our body, within our chest as we breathe, moves our bellies out. So one great thing to practice is relaxing our bellies, breathing, and just noticing that even if it's a slight movement of your belly moving out and back in, out and back in, your belly will move out a little as you breathe in, and it will go back in towards you as you breathe out. And you can do this anyway. You can do this lying down on your back. You can do it sitting up as I am now. But imagine filling your diaphragm with fresh, life-giving air. And it filling, your belly allowing space for that air to come in. Exhale, you can see the diaphragm releasing a little. And then inhale again, it filling back up. Exhaling, releasing. And as you inhale and the diaphragm fills, then so your belly moves. And as you exhale, the same thing, your belly moves. It's a great way to feel connected to the different parts of our body. Just like in birth, in labor and in birth, yes, it's our uterus doing a lot of the work, but the rest of our body is working with it. So there's a couple breathing practices that you can get started with. Self-soothing techniques. There is one thing that my midwife did for me during my very first labor and birth, and I will always, always, always remember it. It was so, it couldn't have been more simple, but it gave me, it just brought me so much comfort, and it soothed me in a way I never thought was even possible. And I think that's part of labor, right? But what she did, I was on my hands and knees, I was on a bed, and I was leaning on a birth ball. Things were getting intense, and she took some powder and she sprinkled it on my back, and she gently rubbed it with her hand. And oh my, just wow, what a beautiful soothing technique. I guess it's not necessarily self-soothing, somebody's doing it for you, but what a beautiful soothing technique to have on hand during labor and birth. And maybe I remember it so much because it wasn't something that was talked about in birth classes. And, powder wasn't something to like keep in your birth bag to have on hand to help you during your labor and birth. But it felt so good because, labor's work. We sweat. It's the nature of it, okay? Labor and birth are wet. In various ways, and the powder on my back dried up the sweat, and her hand in the powder just brought this beautiful softness in the moment, and it was just wonderful. So with that in mind, so keep that in mind. Practicing a soothing technique, whether it be yourself or your partner or a doula, or a best friend, or loving family member, taking time to practice those things now will in the moment help you to go, oh yes, I would like this, or I need this. So the powder on the back, that's not necessarily something you do yourself. It's something that somebody would do for you. But I had to share because it was just one of the best experiences of my life. Okay, self-soothing. Self-soothing techniques are things like affirmations, movement, what position your body is in, having physical comforts nearby, whether that be pillow, blanket, or a drink, having something to listen to, whether that be a loving partner or a family member, or or like a recording that you're listening to that's encouraging you. Anything that brings you comfort is a self-soothing technique, or a soothing technique that a loved one can give to you. and and again, you practice them now, so they're readily available in your mind, part of what you do, part of who you are. And you practice them now throughout your pregnancy, day to day, because then it just becomes what you do to help you. And then when you're in labor, it's already there. It's already there in your subconscious and in your conscious, and it's just going to bring it up. Your body is going to tell you, it's going to show you what you can do to help. If you practice these things on a daily basis, you are giving such a beautiful gift to yourself for when the time of labor and birth come. We practice conscious awareness because it brings us closer to who we are. It brings us closer to that inner self. And labor and birth is inner work. And that's why we practice it every day, as much as we can, so that we really can become in tune with ourselves and with our bodies. And I'm not just talking the physical body. Our mental and emotional selves expand and grow and shift during labor and birth. It is just like one of those times where in our lives where big changes happen, and not just the physical part of the baby moving through your body and out into your arms. I would like to share with you an experience I had in my last labor and birth. It was such a beautiful moment to recognize and to be aware of what was happening. So this is what happened. I was in transition, and I had been on my knees, kind of hands and knees, hands and leaning on a couch, and then I just decided to stand up. And I stand up, and I am saying, no, no, no more, no more, no more. And so you can imagine what I was saying no about, right? So everybody in the room, not everybody, but most people in the room or hearing this story might think she's saying no more to the contraction, no more to the hard work of labor. And I wasn't saying no to that at all. That was one thing I was saying, yes, yes, yes. Not out loud, but inwardly, like, yes, bring my baby to me, bring my baby to me. The no was about the hurt and the pain I've experienced in the past. And I was saying no to that. I was saying no more of that pain, no more, no more. And so in that moment during my labor, I got to have that release of pain and hurt that I carried with me. And in that moment is when I got to let it go. And it's just a beautiful thing for me to recognize that for myself. And that when I brought that baby into this world, I also helped myself so much. I was also relieved of other pain and suffering I had been carrying with me. Remember, you are born to do this. You are the boss of you, and you are worth quality care. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. In the next video, I'll be talking about movement. Movements that you can do now during your pregnancy to help ready your body for labor and birth. And I'll also be sharing one movement that is particularly lovely for labor and birth itself. So until next time.